Welcome back to another episode of the Grand Rising Experience. Have you ever found yourself in unfamiliar and uncomfortable stillness? And I'm talking about the kind of stillness you typically only find in the aftermath of a loss like death, illness, injury, or separation. The kind of silent stillness that leaves you naked because it forced you to shed everything, and sometimes everyone, you thought you knew, valued, and desired. I have. A few years ago, when my shadows finally showed up in 2017 at the height of my burnout, I scrambled to stay busy, both physically and mentally, in an effort to avoid the emotional turmoil that was sitting at the root of my anxiety, depression, and feelings of not enoughness. And when that didn't work, I escaped into the corners of Netflix, Instagram, and any other person, group, and distraction I could find that reinforced and validated that I was not the source of my problems. Does that sound familiar? If you've not had the privilege of slowing down long enough to confront your shadows, this is the kind of stillness that will drown you in waves of shame and guilt and resentment and judgment and ultimately fear. And it will show you the depths of your lack and scarcity programming and trick you into dwelling on all that you've lost instead of being grateful for what still remains. I've been through the shedding process a few times now, so I'm here to share one of my experiences and a few little nuggets that helped me in more uncertain times. After abruptly quitting my job in 2017 at the height of my burnout, I had absolutely no idea how to be still. And it's because at that time, I only knew chaos and crash. There was absolutely no middle ground. And little did I know that I was only in the beginning of a 5-month sabbatical from society that would forever change my life. During my first few weeks off, I scrambled to fill my days with tasks and to keep my mind and body in motion. I mean, I was coming off of 14 to 16 hour work days, working 80 to 100 plus hours a week. So to just go from that kind of busy and speed to nothing, it's like crashing into a brick wall. And part of my busyness was living inside of the fact that I was just soaked in shame around why I had to leave my job. And this was a job that everyone had told me I was not qualified to have because I didn't hold the degrees and the diplomas, and I didn't hold the formal education to be qualified for that position, so much so that it actually resulted in my work permit being reneged. So I had many chips that I was carrying on my shoulder. However, I was damn good at my job. I was very good at my job. But because of all of these external factors, I always felt that I had something to prove. So quitting felt like sudden death to me at that time. And my inner critic had me feeling weak and small and like a fraud for not being able to handle the pressure of these 80 to 100 hour weeks. And the imposter syndrome was on high, it was in full force. And so I began to overcompensate by doing what I thought I knew how to do really well. So it looked like painting my entire condo over, I think, the course of 2 days, and then constantly rearranging furniture and obsessively cleaning and scrubbing everything. And at that point, I had really started working out, and I was exercising about 4 hours a day, which ultimately resulted in me injuring and damaging some of my joints. And then I was cooking more than we could eat, because if I had to stop and face why I was doing all of this, I had to ask myself, why couldn't I handle the pressure? Why didn't I leave sooner? Why did things go so wrong? Why is this pattern of chaos and crash constantly appearing in my life? And when I was descending into this intense burnout and I was asking for help, why couldn't anybody hear me? Why didn't anyone seem to care? And these were all questions that could only be answered in the stillness that I was desperately avoiding. But unfortunately, wherever you go, there you are. And the crash inevitably followed the chaos. Only this time I crashed hard. And this particular crash forced me into the stillness that I had been avoiding. And for the very first time, I became aware of my shit. It was the first time that I finally got sick of my own shit instead of everyone else's. And that brought me face to face with the very hard truth that I am the only common denominator of my life. And I finally heard my own cry for help and knew that if I didn't listen, neither would anyone else, and nothing was ever going to change. And then I hit rock bottom and life got really dark for a minute. And this darkness scared the hell out of me. And I descended into it almost like the setting sun. But only I didn't know if it was going to rise again in the morning. And up until this point, my life experience had taught me that darkness was a life sentence that I could learn to live with, but never really escape. And I remember vividly Googling every symptom I had like a mad woman, looking for any answer that proved that I had not inherited this darkness that lurks throughout my family tree. And because of the experience that I had just 2 years prior with my wisdom teeth extraction, which I'll talk about in another episode, I had little to no faith in allopathic medicine and doctors. And when it came to mental health, I wanted absolutely nothing to do with them because of what I had witnessed my entire life. Through this searching that I was doing, I needed to know that I was not a victim of my genetics and that what was happening to me was only temporary. And I wanted to avoid any modern medical intervention because I had been so traumatized by treatments that appeared to harm more than help the people that I loved. And then I stumbled across 5 words that profoundly changed my life. And they were dark night of the soul. Now, by definition, a dark night of the soul is a spiritual depression. I kind of liken it to like this existential crisis that resembles what is conventionally called depression. And it is a period of your life that just completely collapses your entire sense of self. During this period of darkness, absolutely nothing makes sense anymore, and you tend to feel a deep lack of purpose. It's usually triggered by an external event, which in my case was this workplace burnout, which was really just a symptom and not the root of the issues I was facing. But reality as I knew it had completely collapsed, and I felt so disconnected from myself, my purpose, and the life I thought I was building. And I'd become this stranger in my own body. And so this concept became my key to unlocking how everything came to be. So I moved through this particular dark season for close to a year. And during the first 4 to 5 months, I found a lot of comfort in self-imposed isolation. I was very protective of my energetic space. And I spent a lot of time journaling and meditating and doing what I do best, which is consuming as much information as possible. And it led me to kind of my entry-level spiritual teachers, which would have been at that time Eckhart Tolle, Brene Brown, Gabor Mate, Danielle Laporte, Michael Singer. And I began to ask myself questions that only I could answer. And I practiced how to get still enough to hear answers, even if they only whispered. And learning about the dark night of the soul gave me the courage and faith to reframe what it meant to hit rock bottom and to embrace this darkness instead of reject it, to understand and understand that at this particular time in my life, the world needed to go dark for a minute so that I could learn how to find my own light. And instead of the depths of hell, rock bottom became my brand new foundation. And it became this solid, sturdy place to build and grow. So I had to make the decision at that time to plant myself and then just wait to see what happens. And it was through this cultivation of patience that I was beginning to learn that breakdowns can lead to breakthroughs. And balance eventually started to appear in my life when I actively stopped feeding my ego and starving my soul. I had this aha moment that challenged my embodied beliefs that were keeping me in scarcity and survival mode and therefore self-harming. And that actually came about when I started diving into the energy healing and meeting the Reiki master who started teaching me the importance of using my physical body to map my emotional pain, which I speak about in an earlier episode. And I was now open to the possibility that operating with less in my life is how you actually attract more. In practice, this looked like a lighter workload, leaving room for other opportunities and directions to be considered. And that when I had fewer people demanding my attention, I then had the space to decide where I want to place my focus. Less brain clutter and the ruminating thoughts and beliefs and habits that I had cultivated. When I could learn how to clear them out, I was making room for new ways of thinking and therefore being. And the less resentment I was holding was naturally cultivating empathy and compassion. And when I could cultivate that empathy and compassion, I could no longer hold on to anger, which was allowing for more joy. And being present was creating less pressure to fulfill a perception of who I thought I should be, which was then allowing me to just be who I was in that moment, knowing that it's not static and that it could change and evolve over time and that I was not defined to be a certain way. So if we take this information that I was learning and starting to apply in 2017 and drop it into present day, and if you're like me and you grew up in an environment that feared not having enough, the global climate right now is going to trigger very deep unconscious and ancestral wounds, because the fear of scarcity and lack is a very hot commodity, and so many are acting out their wounds unconsciously. But it becomes incumbent on you to be able to spot when that's happening, both in yourself and in others, so that you can learn how to act accordingly. A question to start with would be, how and where are you being attracted to this kind of low vibrational scarcity and lack energy? Tapping into the source of this question can reveal a lot about your ancestral birth and earth stories, and I promise you that no one is immune to its magnetic pull. So I recently heard an interview with Paul Selig. He's a channeler. I wanted to leave you with a quote from one of his channels that I thought really hit the nail on the head around what's happening right now. Specifically, when we look at the cosmos and the energy and the rise in consciousness that's happening on the earth right now. And he said, the idea of who you are is what is being altered right now. You are all in participation to this, whether or not you believe it. What you believe is always so. The idea of who you have been, informed by an old status quo, is about to be altered in a very strategic way. You need to question who you have been as the new road is appearing before you. This is a requirement for humanity at this time. You cannot go on as you have been and ignore what is before you. All change must be seen as productive. Humanity has said yes to a new way of being. It is underway. Don't listen to fear. Fear is a poor teacher. Don't navigate your landscape through fear. You will fall off the cliff. That is the action of fear. The action of fear is to claim more fear. Do not enact upon it. This is why I believe right now that we are in a time to shift and subtract, not add. Pay attention to what you're clinging to and critically ask if it cultivates peace for you and others. And what would happen if you just decided to let go and let God? Trust and have faith that everything that is happening right now, you've agreed to experience, take the lessons, and just keep on moving. Being grateful for less is a conscious choice that you can make every moment of every day, and I promise it can profoundly affect the reality that you are cultivating at this very moment, and therefore the future you are always in the process of creating through your present actions. This is what I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If it spoke to you or resonated, if you've had your own experience with the dark night of the soul or think that you may be in one now, please head to the comments at grandrisingexperience.substack.com. Let me know or send me an email at support@grandrising.live. I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to dive even deeper with a group of like-minded and like-hearted men and women, consider joining the cocoon, which again you can find at grandrisingexperience.substack.com. Please don't forget to like, rate, review, and share this episode. And until next time, I love you.